The Chicago Bulls have their first day of practice, and we got everything from Patrick Williams talking about being ready to step up in a leadership role for the Chicago Bulls this season. And we now have confirmation that Billy Donovan is actually turning over the defense to Wes Unseld Jr. to come up with that scheme. Is it that Billy Donovan is recognizing a shortcoming in his own game, or is he trying to set up to pass the blame? We're talking about all that and more on today's Chicago Bulls Central.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, man. I am so happy to be talking about Bulls basketball practice, quotes from players. Like, doesn't it just feel a little bit different? Fall, which is my favorite season by far, is here. Basketball is about to be here. We got preseason games, I think, this Friday. The Bulls don't play until Tuesday, but listen, basketball is back. And with that comes a new renewed hope for the Chicago Bulls that may come crashing down early into the season, but as of right now, we can maintain and stay on the hopeful train. And one of the players that's most hopeful coming into this is Patrick Williams, right? There's been, there are some Bulls fans that are absolutely over the Patrick Williams experiment at this point in time. If you can't really call it an experiment. At this point, it's an investment, right? Like when you get your second contract, you get paid $90 million. It's not an experiment anymore. It's an investment of who you are and what you could be as a player at 23 years old. And Patrick Williams has talked about his injury, he talked about a lot, and we're going to go ahead and dive into that now to start off the show. He talked about his injury, right, and saying that he's actually had no setbacks since undergoing his foot surgery, and he's been back playing 5-on-5s for the last month. Now, this is contradictory to what we heard a week or so ago in regards to Patrick Williams having a setback, right, and not playing on 5-on-5. Well, Patrick Williams added some clarity to that, saying that the soreness that he had and developed was in the offseason actually wasn't even in regards to his foot surgery. It was maybe a compensation type stress there in regards to like him overcompensating for the foot that he had surgery on, which caused a little bit of soreness in other places of his body. But he wants to play all 82 games this season. He's going to be ready to go by opening day. So that was really good to hear from Patrick Williams. And this is why, like, while I'm going to report on everything, right? Anything that comes out, you guys, I'm going to get drop a video on. You already know we're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls. To do that, we got to talk about everything that comes out with the Bulls. But when reporters, and I believe I don't want to put it on any specific reporter because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I believe it came from Joe Cowley. Could be wrong on that. I want to be clear. Somebody please fact check me on that one. But this is why you have to wait to hear sometimes from the sources. Now, I know my more conspiracy laden, especially when it comes to injuries with the Bulls, are going to say, well, maybe the Bulls just weren't transparent about it. And that could be truthful as well when it comes down to it. But to hear that Patrick Williams, even the minor setback that he had nothing to do with his foot surgery, that made me feel a lot more confident in it. And to hear that he's been back on 5-on-5s for a while, and that's even what Billy Donovan said during media day, that Patrick Williams has been doing 5-on-5s. That's all really good, right? And so outside of that, Patrick Williams talked about that the team wants him to step up as a leader and that he realizes that he needs to take advantage of the opportunity that's now coming ahead of him this season. And, we talked about on yesterday's live stream when I did some of the things that came out of day one of training camp is, Patrick Williams and overall like this injury thing that's ahead of everybody Patrick Williams has gained weight. He's put on muscle. He looks in some of the best shape of his career. The opportunity is going to be there for P. Will. The one thing that you have to talk about this as well when it comes down to P. Will is he going to take advantage of that? Is his mindset and mentality? He's still going to be probably the fourth option on offense, right? Kobe, Levine, Giddey are all going to be ahead of him. Vooch could be ahead of him as well when it comes down to the number of touches. So it's going to come with Patrick Williams has to do two things this season. Now, one is out of his control, right? Billy Donovan running plays for Patrick Williams is out of his control, but there are two things that are in Patrick Williams' control. A, being aggressive, right? Keeping your head up, making the head up plays, that type of thing, staying active, right? Cutting to the basket, those type of things. The activity things from Patrick Williams are 100% in his control, and he needs to grab that bull by the horns and do that. And then the refinement of his game, right? Not being as passive, right? When you get that shot, Don't pass it off. Make a dribble. Trust the work that you've been doing with Dribble Too Much. Trust the work you've been putting in the offseason. Like, I know, I'm not saying be selfish and call your own number or anything like that, but like, if you feel you have a mismatch, if you feel you can take your player off the dribble, attempt that. Be a little bit more aggressive. Even with that, with the motion that this Bulls offense is going to be trying to run, even if Patrick Williams did make an aggressive move to the basket to try to take his player off the dribble, and if he's not able to get to the rim like he wants to, pass that thing on off. But the aggression from Patrick, not just getting the ball, pump faking at the 3-point line, and then passing it right back off. We need to see that Patrick Williams is attempting to be more aggressive within this offense. And I'm glad to hear that. He talked about the leaders that he's had on the team, learning from DeMar, learning from Thad Young, learning from Garrett Temple when they were here, things like that. Now it's time for Patrick Williams to take that all and to put it in practice. And that's what we need. And he seemed more confident for what it was talking to reporters. If you go and see any of Patrick Williams' conversations with reporters after this practice, you'll notice that this seems like a man that's matured some this offseason, not just physically, but just he wasn't looking away as much. He was more just well-spoken in general, and that comes with being in front of reporters for going into your 5th year in the NBA. But, if we see some of that confidence come on the basketball court for Patrick Williams, I think that could be a big thing for Pat, to pay off into his game. And so let's hope that we see that. But overall, when it comes to Patrick Williams, he says that he's ready to step up as a leader. He says his team needs him to step up as a leader. So now let's just see that brought into reality on the basketball court. I'm glad to hear that the setback he had nothing to do with this surgery. That's really good to hear. We hadn't heard that up until this point. So that's good to know as well that, that was, like I said, more of a compensation type thing. And people who've had an injury, especially with their legs or their feet, know that you do overcompensate. You shift your weight a little bit, and that can cause some soreness in some places. So, it's good to see that Patrick Williams has made that next step up. And let's see that continued growth from Patrick Williams as well. All right. Now, let's go into the tidbits that came from coaching in the first day of practices. I did get into this during the live stream, and Billy Donovan talked a lot about the fit that needs to happen here. Zach LaVine fitting in, right? Specifically saying that Zach LaVine fitting in while trying to develop the young players, and that, it comes down to sacrifice, right? And that's what they're trying to do right now in training camp is build sacrifice and competition. And I think that's the best thing that you could want to see in a training camp is have a competitive training camp. And, Manas Busilis has already added to that. If you guys see some of the clips that came out, you'll see Ayo Dosunmu really being vocal in when they're defending, like, hey, he's calling out things on your left, on the right, things like that. And so we're going to be missing that from not having a player like Alex Caruso out there. So to see Ayo Dosunmu really step up in that as well, but to hear from Billy Donovan that it's about competition, right? It's about competition and fit, trying to fit in and sacrifice that you have to make for each other. And, highlighting the fact that that it comes down to Kobe, Zach, and Josh Giddey while they're off the court things. It seems like they're all off the court that they've talked, they've communicated. Zach and Josh Giddey have talked a lot as well. And Kobe White, we already know Kobe's goofy. Kobe's, he's a guy that most players and teammates are going to love to be around. He's just that type of guy. The off the court, everything seems fine. But the sacrifice that's going to be needed on the court for these guys is something that Billy Donovan is really focused on during this training camp period, is getting into this roster. And so, yeah, that's what you need, right? And your training camp should be competitive. There are a lot of guys that are fighting and competing and trying to show they deserve minutes. Don't overlook Manas Busilis trying to show that and we got a quote from him in regards to being possibly being in the G League. We'll talk about here in a while as well. But Manas Busilis is bringing that level of competition. Ayo Dosunmu, even though he's projected to come off the bench when everybody's healthy, he's still competing for minutes, right? Competing for roles. You got a whole set of guys that are trying to get that last roster spot for Ernolat Batum, who he's going to have to try to fight for things. So there's a lot coming into this, and I think right now that's the place that you want this Bulls team to be. Everybody has to bring it to earn their minutes on the court. That goes from Patrick Williams, because you got guys like Julian Phillips, Manas Busilis that are coming for your minutes. That goes to guys, even to Zach LaVine, right? Not to say that Zach LaVine isn't going to get minutes, but let's best believe if any of these young guys show a better ability to fit in and bring some things, you could be losing shots. You could be losing some of your role, right? And same thing to Kobe, same thing to Josh Giddey, and Vooch as well. Like, we got to see it. I posted this on the shorts. If you guys haven't seen it, please go check out the shorts. First of all, Javon Carter missed another layup. Like, that's all the confirmation I needed. Like, you're missing layups in training camp. Get off my team, ho. Like stop that. But with that said, that Nikola Vucevic had a putback dunk where he actually jumped, right? Like when you got young centers behind you, right? And Jalen Smith, who one thing we know about Jalen, he ain't gonna hesitate to put hops on somebody when he can. He doesn't have the biggest hops, but he's gonna put it on somebody's neck if he has the ability to. And Adama Sanogo is damn physical, right? So it's good to have a competitive training camp. And with all the doubt around this Bulls team that's rightfully so that's going to still be there until they show otherwise, that like the Bulls are going about it in the right way as far as handling things in training camp with competition, right? Coming in, being competitive, pushing each other as teammates, and sacrifice, right? I want to be clear here. Sacrifice is needed on every NBA team. I don't care if you're Jason Tatum. I don't care who you are. Sacrifice is needed for teams to work. And how these players sacrifice together, whether it's sacrificing individual shots, whether sacrificing being on ball more, whatever it is, you gotta dive into that sacrifice if you really want to have a successful team. And we'll see how successful the Bulls can be this season, but you gotta sacrifice to get there. And so hopefully the Bulls are doing that. It sounds like from Billy Donovan, from Casey Johnson, that the competition and sacrifice is there. And Billy Donovan is even sacrificing, what gets us to the next thing that I think shows a great level of awareness from Billy Donovan, or I got a conspiracy theory on it as well, but we got confirmation that Billy Donovan has basically turned over the defensive scheming to Wes Unseld Jr., right, who is a lead assistant for the Chicago Bulls team. And listen, that's something that, and Billy Donovan has coached really solid teams, right? I mean, defensive teams. When you look at it, the Bulls have been towards the top to middle of the league in defense more than they have been towards the bottom of the league in defense since Billy Donovan has been here. But bringing in somebody like Wes Unseld Jr., right, who is a highly touted assistant in this league, and for him to be one of your lead assistant coaches here, I think that's really big. That Billy Donovan has turned that over to Wes Unseld Jr. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to have more success or not. We got to wait and see what comes down with that, right? But it shows a level of awareness of Billy Donovan's own shortcomings, and maybe he looked at this team and saying, hey, I don't know if I can come up with the scheme needed to be able to get the best that we need defensively out of the team. Make no mistake, Billy Donovan is concerned about the defense. I want to make no mistake. Between his comments on 670 The Score, when he wasn't even asked about the defense, to the media day in which he brought up defense again, Billy Donovan is concerned about the defense, and turning that over to Wes Unseld Jr., I think that means that Billy Donovan said, hey, if you can come up with something better, which maybe it shows confidence in that, all right, I'm going to secede it over to you. Of course, we're still going to have a conversation about it. I'm still the head coach here, but we've seen other coaches do that, right? Like, for example, in the championship run for the Celtics, Doc Rivers turned the defense completely over to Tom Thibodeau. KG, Paul Pierce, everybody has confirmed it. Tom Thibodeau was the one calling the defensive plays. He was coaching the defense, everything. When the Celtics were on the defensive side of the ball, Tom Thibodeau was the one standing up and surveying that. I don't know if we'll see it to that extent for Wes Unseld Jr., if he's more coming up with the schemes, whatever will happen there. But it's good to see that Billy Donovan is turning them, because we said it. You have these assistants that come in that have been veteran assistants, that have been on championship teams. How much are you actually going to trust those guys? And so Billy Donovan even sacrificing as well, to have Wes Unseld Jr. Now, conspiracy-minded, and Winton Mahorn, shout out to my boy Winton. I got to bring him up anytime I talk about Billy Donovan. May say, hey, is Billy Donovan more so looking for somebody to pass the blame on with the defense? And honestly, I mean, I can understand that conspiracy if anybody was to have that. But I think ultimately the spirit of sacrifice has to go from top to bottom on your roster, especially with where you are right, or through your franchise, especially with where this franchise is right now. So hearing that Wes Unseld Jr. is basically going to be the guy in charge of that defense, it actually brought me a lot of hope, right? Even kind of more hope, because you may need to get new eyes on things, right? And so having that and turning that over kind of makes me hope that maybe Billy Donovan even turns a little bit more over to certain people. Maybe even, we don't know what Dan Craig's were. We didn't hear about Dan Craig. What is Dan Craig's kind of focus on as well? So I like that aspect of things, and we'll see how that pays off for the Bulls once the season starts. Now, I said we were going to talk a little bit about Matas Buzelis, and listen, this is the guy. I love Matas Buzelis, man. I can't stress enough how the way that Buzelis not only carries himself, his attitude, the way that he talks, the way that he also backs his teammates, right? Because there was a tweet that came out with somebody called Josh Giddey P. Giddy, and it was a random person. It wasn't even like a reporter or anything. And Modest Silas responded to them and said, hey, it's Josh Giddey, bro. Like when we talk about trying to, who's going to be the next leader for the Chicago Bulls, and I've said this before, I'm not expecting Modest Silas to be a leader anytime soon for the Bulls, but I can see him developing into a leader. I can see Modest Silas being the type of guy, much like Joakim Noah was, as far as Joakim Noah was he was the heart, he was the heart, and he really helped build the identity of that Bulls team as far as the tone that was set there. I can see Modest Silas developing into that guy. Now, to be a leader, I think you also have to be good on the basketball court, and that's what we're waiting to see develop for Modest Silas, even though I have tons of faith there. But you can see Modest Silas' confidence already is going to be something that definitely impacts this Bulls team. Now, he was asked by a reporter if it's been talked about if he's going to be on the G League next season. He said that that conversation hasn't happened yet as far as that he knows with him. But if the Bulls need him to go to the G League, he's open to going to the G League. But he specifically said, no, my goal is I will be playing on this level of competition. So I love that. And that's kind of what I said about Modest Silas. He's going to deal with whatever you throw at him. But best believe he's out to prove everybody and any doubters wrong. He's there to prove, hey, no, you got to play me because I'm going to offer us the best situation and potential to win basketball games. And we haven't really had a rookie with that mindset in a while, right? And that's not to knock any of our past rookies. Like Dalen Terry was a young guy. Julian Phillips is another young, quiet guy, right? Patrick Williams, we already know about Passive P. He's growing out of that. Hopefully we'll see. And even Ayo Dosunmu, who was a guy that he was going to bring it on the basketball court, right? But Modest Silas has talked about the confidence. Has talked about how he likes to shit talk other players, right? And things like that. Like Modest Silas is a guy that holds a lot on himself, but he's not the selfish type of guy where it's about him as far as he's not going to sacrifice for his teammates. Modest Silas is ready to do whatever the Bulls need. And I think that is going to be a path for him to get minutes on this Bulls team. There are legitimate concerns that a lot of Bulls fans have on if Modest Silas is going to play this season. And it would be unfair of me to say that anybody's wrong for having those concerns. Now, I'm looking at the facts of it. Billy Donovan has played more rookies than he hasn't. Julian Phillips playing 40 games last season, on pace to play about 50 to 55 before he got hurt, right? Ayo Dosunmu played early into his career. Patrick Williams played early into his career. Dalen Terry was raw, extremely raw. We didn't expect Dalen Terry to play that rookie year. Now, I will say this. I wanted to see Dalen Terry play a little bit more last season than what he did, but, it is what it is. And then, of course, Marko Simonovic, which Marko just wasn't, right? So, we'll see how this grows and develops for this team. But Modest Silas has the right mindset. He has the right mentality, and he's been engaged in practice. And we'll see how that pays off for him in the role that he plays next season. And Dalen Terry as well is another young guy that's really trying to earn his way this season, and he's bringing that spirit of competition as well. And when it comes down to Dalen Terry, it's going to come to me, I think, with Dalen Terry, the instinctual plays that Dalen Terry makes, which are good. When you go back and look at it, Dalen Terry knows when to cut to the basket. He knows when to cut into a passing lane and get a steal. He knows when to pass it off. And if that shot becomes a little bit more of a weapon for him, Dalen Terry can be a really good Swiss Army knife off the bench for the Bulls. Now, we got to see. We got a lot of things that we got to work out as far as the rotations, things like that. But, we'll see how that continues to develop. Now, the last thing that I want to get into is we got some injury news over the course. We already talked about Patrick Williams, the fact that his setback wasn't even with the foot he had surgery on, so that's really good. He's been playing 5-on-5 for a while. He was limited in practice today. He did most of everything, so had some limitations. But Ernalot Batum, who's a guy that we know is trying to hold on to his roster spot for the Chicago Bulls team. It actually came out that he detached his retina. He had to have 2 different surgeries on his retina, and at some point in time, he had to be on his stomach for 15 hours of the day. He had to lie on his stomach, right? And so he is definitely trying to hold on to that 15th roster spot. But listen, there's guys like THT. There's guys like Kenny Lofton Jr. There's guys like EJ Liddell that are trying to get that position from him. And the fact is I'll say this. Ernalot, when you look at Ernalot and THT, the one thing that we have that I think THT has over Ernalot is that he's done it at an NBA level more consistent, right? But Ernalot, to me, he's still young, not as young as THT, but still young, offers more of a three-point shooting upside. And, AK went out and scouted him intentionally to bring him to the Chicago Bulls team. But I don't think that at that point, this Bulls team was headed in a much different direction than what it looks like it's headed in now. But Ernalop is engaged in practice. He's ready, and he understands what's ahead of him as well. And so for people who have asked me, and I've seen the comments, does Ernalop Batum make this final 15-man roster? And I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have a feel for that. I'm not quite sure. I hope that he does. But at the end of the day, the Bulls are going to make the right decision that they feel is best for this roster. So whether it's THT, EJ Liddell, Ernalop Batum, it comes down to who brings it in practice and who fits in with this group of guys and the way that they want to play. I think that Ernalop can fit into that, but he has to prove it on the court because as we've seen in this offseason and in this training camp, nothing's a given for anybody. And then as far as Josh Giddey, we did get kind of confirmation that he's in 100% game shape. So there's not any question about him being in shape for a basketball game or an NBA game. Is that right now they're just being protective about his return. So even him being limited in practice, it seems like that's more of a precautionary thing because they just want to make sure that that ankle is fully healed up and ready to go by the start of the season. That they're focused on Giddey being ready at the start, more so than maybe even preseason. So we may not see Josh Giddey maybe into the last maybe couple of preseason games. So prepare yourself for that, right? But it seems like that's part of the plan of getting Josh Giddey and having him ready. Basically, the Bulls are protecting their investment, both in the future and the contract that they got to give Josh Giddey because they want to be able to evaluate that, but also protecting the investment in the trade that they had to make to bring Josh Giddey to this team. So all of those things kind of equal out to where they are right now. And I think, that's fair. That's good. Protect your investment. But we need to see these guys on the basketball court. And overall, let's see what day 2 in practice brings. And I'll be live again later on today if details come out. It depends. If details come out hey, they had a good practice and that's it, I may not do a live tonight. But if it's anything substantial, whether injuries or anything like that, maybe, no, I'll probably do a live stream regardless, mainly because I want to hear how Lonzo Ball and his body responds to the limited contact portions he did yesterday. So either way, you probably can bet on a live stream from me tonight. Make sure you guys stay locked in with us on that, man. But either way, that's it for me for today. For right now, at least, make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.